A very good evening to all of you and welcome to Plentia. The topic for today's session is 50 Shades of Space, how color manipulates us from an architectural point of view. And our presenter for today is Sanduni Lenadora. She's a fourth year student at Faculty of Architecture, University of Moderator. And for those who are new, what we usually do is we first do the presentation and then we will move on to our discussion. So color is an important part of our world. However, is it merely a tool of decoration or is it something more? So to find out, we'll move on to our presentation. Sanduni, over to you.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for that introduction. Okay, so I'm here to talk about something everybody knows something about. Color plays an important part of our lives and is something very close to us. And it's used in almost everything we do, and even though we don't realize it most of the time. And since our childhood, we use color to identify objects and associate it with other qualities of things in order to understand the world around us. Also, in the evolution of mankind, color played a really important role in developing a system to communicate. We've heard about how different colored flags were used to convey messages in the past. So even nowadays, we still use color as it's one of the most fundamental and simplest tools of communication. So this is why color is important to us. I'm not going into too much detail about the physics of color and light, but simply put, color is the quality of an object or substance with respect to its light reflectance or emission. So basically, the color of an object is how we describe the way it reflects or emits light. This simple diagram shows how color works. The white light falls onto the apple, and the apple absorbs the energy from all the wavelengths except that of red, and therefore it is reflected. So the man sees the apple as a red object. So we know that color is a tool of visual communication. The importance in color lies because of these characteristics. It helps to portray information quickly. So this quality is especially useful in maps, where it really helps us to position ourselves in a two-dimensional drawing, and then we can navigate it, and we can find a lot of information with the use of color. And other than that, when we need to communicate complex information, color is especially useful. For example, I have shown this topography map here. So in this map, you can see that some parts of the map are darker, colored in darker shades, and some are lighter. So we, with this color coding system, we can identify which parts of the land are higher and which parts of the land are at lower elevation. So we can actually visualize this whole space in a three-dimensional form just by looking at the map. But just imagine saying all this information without the use of color. Some systems are in use where color is not used, but it's much more complicated and you can't really communicate this easily. And especially on the road, where making quick decisions is important, and quick judgments. So traffic lights use color because you can quickly communicate with the pedestrians and the drivers. I'm sure most people have seen this poster, and it's true. We first of all we noticed that a tooth is missing, but this is mainly because of the color contrast in the mouth compared to the eyebrow. So because of that emphasis that the color difference has created, we notice one thing before we notice the second thing. So the correct use of color can tell a viewer what to notice first. So sometimes in posters and advertisements, use of brighter and bolder colors can be done to grasp a person's attention. Color helps to organize and give structure. Colors are especially useful in infographics. So it can create a hierarchy in the information a diagram provides and show which parts are more important than the others. So it helps to simplify complex information. Color helps to improve recognition. So there are different traffic signs and they are categorized by color. So we have red and white signs, then yellow and black signs and blue signs. So when we see one of these, the first thing we notice is whether it's blue or yellow or red. So before we understand what the sign says, that piece of information is registered on our head that this is a sign of this category. And about conveying emotion, we will be discussing about it later. So this is like the main topic here. We are going to discuss the role of color in architecture. But before understanding the role of color in architecture, let me tell you a little bit about the role of an architect. An architect is basically someone who designs buildings, and sometimes they have to design cities and sometimes do renovations, so things like that. But most of the time, the people who come to architects expect a little more than just designing a building. For example, some people come with this really small plot of land to building, and then they ask for a house that has a garden and looks spacious. And some people say, like, you can make my house like this, but I want it to be highlighted in the neighborhood. I want it to look like the best house in the neighborhood. And some people come with a really small budget and they ask for a house that looks rich, like it has to shout that like this is a house of a rich person, but their budget is really small. And also some people come to get their house renovated and completely change the outlook of the house. So they might come with an old house and ask for a modern looking interior. So some of these can be done easily, but more often these are like very unrealistic when you look at it at first. So to achieve these impossible expectations, we use several tools, and color is just one of them. So this is what color can do. Colors can help to give an identity to a building or sometimes even a whole city. So there are certain examples in the world. These cities are really poor at first, and then the community starts to color their houses in various colors, and it becomes such a vibrant neighborhood that it turns into a tourist attraction. And then that solves a lot of problems. They develop their economy, and the poor community is uplifted by just the use of color. And then you can use it to highlight certain aspects and elements of a space. Sometimes that is to give a focal point, and sometimes it's to hide your blunders. And to control the behavior of people. So this is psychological manipulation, and that can be done with the use of color, especially in public spaces and sometimes where aggressive behavior can be expected, or when there is a calming atmosphere that is needed to that certain building. So these can be achieved by the careful use of color. Color can be used to express a certain emotion, where architecture wants to convey a message. And also it can change the perception of volume, basically to make a room look more spacious or compact, to merge with the surrounding with the use of color. So you can create connections with nature by using the appropriate colors, and you can use it to create a statement, maybe political. Again, that is foreign expression. Yeah. So these are basically some of the things that color can do in architecture. So these can be mainly categorized into these three implications. Like sometimes these objectives are like spatial requirements, and sometimes these are psychological, and sometimes it's based on the architect's or the user's philosophy. So sometimes these objectives sometimes fall under one of the implications, but some of these objectives are like all three. For example, to merge with the surrounding and create a connection with nature could be a spatial requirement and a psychological and philosophical requirement as well. Because spatial, because maybe let's say the guy who came with the small plot of land who needs a big living room and the garden. So to make his living room look bigger, you can create a connection with the nature, if you can understand what I'm saying. So that way you can create a spatial, so there is a spatial requirement, and psychological because nature has a calming property and healing properties. So to merge with the surrounding, that might be the reason. And sometimes it's the philosophy of the architect. The architect's vision can be the cause of the need for to merge with the surrounding. So first of all, we'll look at how the perception of space can be manipulated by color. So basically, you can either expand or compress a space with the use of light and darker colors. The principle here is the lighter colors make a space look bigger, and the darker colors make it look smaller. So in this picture, the first picture shows how a space can be enlarged with the use of lighter colors. The trick here is it reflects more light, so it feels more spacious. And on the other hand, by using darker colors on all the surfaces, you can shrink a space. So sometimes you need a cozy, compact, and intimate space. So a feeling of enclosure is obtained by using dark colors on all the walls. Yeah, so when you want to make it look like your ceiling is higher, you can use a lighter shade on the ceiling. So for example, in modern apartments where space is limited, you can make the volume look bigger to make the room less claustrophobic. On the other hand, you can make the ceiling lower by using a darker color on it. For example, in entrances, you can make it a more comfortable space to live in when the space is too large. So when you have the wall at the edge of the room, if you can use a dark color on it, then this a narrow space can be shortened. So when it's too large, the dark wall makes it look less long. And when you use dark walls all around and have the ending surface as a light color, the eyes are drawn towards that light colored wall. So the wall is being highlighted and it becomes a focal point. You can make the space look wider by having a dark shade on the ceiling and the ending wall. So what happens here is you lower the ceiling and you bring the edge wall to the front, and then you have these light colored side walls that widens the space. And the opposite also works because the space looks more narrow because you feel like the side walls are closing onto you. and the ceiling is higher, and the end wall is a lighter color, so it feels longer. And you can shorten the space too by using a dark color on the lower part of the side walls, because there are some instances where we want to make the walls shorter when there are like large spaces, and like it's very uncomfortable to stay in such spaces. So you break the continuity by having this darker shade at the lower part of the walls. Okay, so the second implication that color can achieve is the psychological part. So for that, color psychology is used in architectural spaces. So this is a very broad topic, and there are plenty of research about this. So the idea here is that colors can be used to convey emotions and also to control the behavior of people. So there are some generally accepted meanings for colors, and also some colors have a special meaning to a special group of people. So some colors can have a religious or cultural significance, which also determines the behavior and the emotion that can be felt by the people. So it is somewhat subjective. So generally, all the colors can be categorized into three: the warm colors, cool colors, and the neutral colors. The general understanding is that warm colors like red, orange, and yellow can create comfort and warmth, but it can also be a little aggressive when it's used too much. So it can create hostility and anger as well. And on the other hand, the cool colors such as green, blue, and purple often spark feelings of calmness and sometimes a very dullness and sadness as well. And the neutral colors are generally considered to be black, yellow, black, white, and gray, and some browns. So you can see in this diagram that there's this huge patch of gray in the middle. It may seem like just one gray and the same color, but there's a lot happening in this middle part. There are cool grays and warm grays as well. So basically, yeah, there could be shades of gray. So this is a catalog of grays to choose from in Copic markers. Copic markers are a special type of marker used by designers, architects, and cartoonists. It's similar to a platinum, but it's different in quality and provides a range of colors with a special tip. So all these shades, they might seem similar, but choosing the correct gray is critical, and some grays can't be used together even. Like the cool grays and the warm grays would never match. So like the wrong use of gray can completely ruin a drawing or an architectural space or whatever it's used. So what I'm trying to say is, like in the presentation, I'm categorizing these colors into like just white, red, and yellow, but there is a lot more to consider. Even in a yellow, like one yellow can mean something and another yellow can mean something completely different. But anyway, we'll just go through some general meanings of color. So this is white. White generally represents purity and innocence. That's why a bride's dress is white. And it can also represent freshness and a new start, and like positive energy, like how Gandalf comes again as kind of the white wizard. So that kind of positive energy can be represented by white. It also represents peace, surrender, and loss. It's sometimes seen as a very plain, bland color. So that's why it is used as a mourning color in some cultures. In an architectural space, well, this is one of the many examples. So there's this thing called modern architecture, And what they basically say is minimalism is the way to go, and we reject decorations and lots of vibrant elements in a building. So basically, to show plainness, the nothingness, you can use colors like white. Red symbolizes a lot of things, and this is a famous scene from the Schindler's List, where the girl in the red coat has a significant is a significant symbol in the movie. What it shows is the war, the violence that's about to take place, and in American Beauty, red is used to show energy, passion, love, desire, and lust. And this emoji, I guess it shows excitement and again energy and impulse. And red is known to increase your appetite. So lots of food products use this color red in their brands. And if you're an anime fan, you would know that Naruto's red chakra represents how the energy is changing, and the power, the heat, the aggression, the danger, the fire inside him, and all these intense feelings are also represented by red. So in architectural spaces, red is mostly used in fast food restaurants. If you think about it, and if you compare it with another high-end restaurant, you will realize how different the atmospheres are, even though it's for the same function, just to eat, right? So this is different because in fast food restaurants, that excitement, that energy must be present. And also, red is a color that increases the appetite. So red is beneficial. And also, apparently we can't stay in a red space for too long. So these spaces are well lit and mostly red to basically chase us away. When you think about yellow, I personally think SpongeBob represents everything about yellow with his character. So he portrays optimism and joy. And in other movies too, like the Minions, always the yellow character has a very bubbly, joyful personality. And also, it is a color that increases the appetite. And when you give yellow flowers, you signify friendship. And it is used to show hazards. But on the other hand, like some cultures have different meanings to this. So in Germany, yellow represents jealousy. So they don't really like it when you give them yellow flowers. And in some ancient cultures, goddesses were represented with the color yellow. And in Japan, it symbolizes bravery and courage. This is a perfect example for the best use of yellow color. If you're from Kandy, you would know where this is. And so for those of you who don't, and also who don't remember what this was before this happened, this was like this very dark alleyway, and it was so narrow, and nobody would ever step into it because there were these small shops with worn out name boards, and like it was a dead end. But once this cafe came up and they colored it in yellow, this place looks amazing. Like you can, when you're walking on this road, you can it quickly grabs your attention because of this bright, bubbly color. So this happens in other parts of the world too. So it's frequently used in commercial spaces and restaurants to gain the attention of pedestrians. Blue is a very popular color because it transmits the feeling of positivity, confidence, and security. So it's frequently used in logos, and it symbolizes integrity, knowledge, power, and seriousness. Also, blue has a specific meaning connecting to sadness and depression. That's why we have the term the blues. and it's known to reduce your appetite and sometimes seen as evil. So Krishna is seen as blue because it represents the qualities like bravery, manliness, determination, and the ability to deal with difficult situations, and his stable mind and depth of the character. So these kind of things can be represented with the color blue. So it is often used in commercial and business spaces such as banking agencies and offices and companies to create that sense of security and safety and integrity. So the color pink is very popular because it's seen as a feminine color in these gender reveal parties and all that, but perhaps the meaning is changing now. And also, one thing I noticed about Strawberry Shortcake is her character changed like multiple times during the years, but throughout the years, she has always been very, very pink. Also, pink is used to symbolize love, romance, caring qualities, tenderness, and pink is well known to create calmness. So this quality is very important in certain situations. Believe it or not, this is a prison. In some countries, prisons are painted in pink, and not just any pink, this specific pink called Baker Miller pink. And there has been lots of research regarding this color, and it is known to reduce the aggressiveness of the occupants and to make them very calm. Sometimes when the pink is like overused, it really drains out the energy, and they have said that it's too pink. You know, it's that powerful, this color. Green is almost always connected with the idea of nature. So it evokes a sense of calmness, tranquility, serenity, and well-being. Brands that focus on health and well-being often use green, but in some countries, the meaning is completely different. For example, in China, if a man wears a green hat, it can mean that his wife cheated on him. And in Japan, green is associated with eternity and vitality. And we know that Islamic cultures consider green as a very sacred color. And in Middle Eastern cultures, green represents wisdom. So green's calming nature has made it a regular color in spaces associated with health and well-being, such as hospitals and relaxation centers. Black has a lot of meanings too. It sometimes shows elegance and sophistication, as well as evil, magic, mystery, bad luck, and fear. And sometimes power and sexuality too. Black is a color of grief and mourning in the Western cultures, so it represents unhappiness and detachment as well. This is one of the many examples. So in spaces where and in buildings where mourning is the main reason the building was built, this black color is especially useful, like war memorials and places like that. So this project is called the Occupation of Loss, and it's a place to perform rituals of grief. So basically, professional mourners come here, and then they do their act, and people come to watch it. So this place is like very dimly lit, and the rest of the walls are very black, and these long elements are highlighted, and to create this focus on this part of the building, all the other walls have become black. Final implication is philosophical implications that can be achieved by the use of color. There are some examples in history, because this is not something new. It was first mentioned by this architect called Vitruvius. He's known to be the father of architecture. So that means color had played an important role from the beginning of architecture itself. The person here shown is the French architect Viollet-le-Duc, and he has found out that about the use of color in ancient dwellings in China, Egypt, Assyria, Greece, during the Roman Empire, in the Middle Ages of Europe, and in ancient Muslim world. So the pictures show one in Egypt, and then this is a Roman palace, a Greek house, and a feudal castle. The story of Egypt blue, I found that interesting. So this color blue is very special. It's very rare. It's often found in Egyptian architecture, but sometimes it's found in different civilizations as well. So the story of Egypt blue is it was associated with the colors of the sky and the river Nile. So it represented the universe, creation, and fertility. So this is supposed to be a rare color. So sometimes when it's found in different civilizations, when this color is used for the sculptures of people, so they identify that figure as a very prominent person during those times because they were important enough to import this rare blue pigment for their sculptures. In Greek architecture, like what we see now is white. Some of you might know this, but it was believed for centuries that it was just white, but then they found out that it was actually polychromatic, which means you use several main colors to decorate the building. So decorating with color has represented a more grand space. So color was used to show power and the grandness of the building. And moving on to modern examples, Le Corbusier was a pioneer in modern architecture. So in modern architecture, what the usual story is, you don't use decorative elements and colors and things that make the building very fancy. But this specific architect, although it contradicts with the principles of modern architecture, he believed that color affects and influences the spatial effects. So he used these vivid colors in his building. So that was connected to his philosophy. So this first building is actually of a church. So it shows richness, vibrance. It brings richness and vibrance into the holy space with the use of color. And Luis Barragan is a Mexican architect who went crazy with color. So that is also connected to his philosophy because he was trying to bridge the unique Mexican architecture with the modern ideology of simplicity. So it is his use of color is rooted in how his culture experienced the world. So Mexico is a tropical country, and colors are seen brightly under the Mexican sun and play an important role in everyday life and rituals. So the colors that he uses in his architecture uplifts the spirits of people and represent the diversity in tropical plants and birds. Tadao Ando is a Japanese architect, and this is a bit of a different example because his architectural style emphasizes nothingness and empty space to represent the beauty of simplicity. So in this instance, color is used as a negative tool. So to create nothingness and this raw, robust kind of quality, color is used in the opposite way. Jeffrey Bauer, I guess you all know him. So his philosophy is all about creating connections with nature and creating that inside and outside relationship, things like that. So to create that bond between the nature and the building, he uses these very mild earthy colors in his buildings, like browns and certain yellows are very popular in his buildings, to create that connection with earth and the colors in nature. And this last example is a little different, and it's very special because this is one of the buildings in the middle of Colombo. Like the busiest part of Colombo, there is a Jeffrey Bauer building, and it's very, very small. So, like we discussed earlier, how the white walls can create a sense of spaciousness, and this is one of the best examples for that because he has used this very reflective white surfaces throughout the building, and it really feels spacious than it actually is. Anjalendran is also another Sri Lankan architect. So his ideology is about minimalism and very modest architecture that doesn't scream outside. So he uses color to highlight the elements of the interior spaces. And sometimes these colors can help to create a sense of movement. For example, in this middle picture, there's this vibrant doorway and a colorful wall on the other side. So a person would feel like walking towards that because it looks more interesting compared to the rest. So that kind of things can be done with the use of color. This is Valentine Sekara, also a Sri Lankan architect. He believed in simplicity and clarity. So he used these pure colors such as black, white, blue, and pink and colors like that to obtain that simplicity just by creating shapes and like big color patches. So that's what he used to create expressions and spatial quantities. So like I said earlier, color is just one of the things that can help to create different characters in architectural spaces. And as you can see in these photos, there's a lot more at play, like the lighting conditions, the materials, and things like that. So it can completely change the mood of the room and the space. So this is sort of a public service announcement. Maybe you have a project that seems a little unrealistic and nearly impossible because of the cost, the physical constraints, and the other issues that might come to your mind. But maybe your architect can achieve something with his set of tools, such as color, like we saw earlier. All the other things also have these ways of changing perception and changing the complete mood of the place. So it might not be impossible. So that's the end of my presentation. I feel like I talked a lot, so let's get into the discussion. Yeah.
Thank you, Sanduni. Thank you very much for that amazing presentation. Like, color is something that we see every day, but we don't really think about it very much. So you made us look at it in a whole new way. Thank you.
Yes.
And thank you, Sanduni, for accepting the invitation and doing it. I'm going to say it was a very colorful discussion. I've been thinking about it the whole time. Right. So then we'll conclude for today. So thank you again, Sanduni. It was really interesting, and thank you everyone for coming and contributing. It was actually a very lively discussion. So then let's meet next week. Yeah, have a good night, everyone, and thank you so much.